Hello everyone, welcome to the tutorial and demonstration of my script, Disable Inactive Accounts. Before I get into that, I want to go over the objective and purpose of the script. I've been building the script for over a year now, and it's allowed ISOs and admins to maintain control and awareness of the accounts on their networks. Not only that, it also enhances compliance with Control AC21 for automated account management. So what the script actually does is it'll disable users automatically. Once it does that, it'll move them to the disabled OU and also append the date they were disabled all automatically. And it gives you the ability to say, who do you want to disable automatically? Who do you want to report as inactive but never actually disable them? So for example, your service accounts, your admin accounts, you don't want to disable those automatically, but maybe your standard user or DTA accounts, you'll have them be disabled automatically if they're deemed inactive. So what I'm going to do now is go through the setup, show you the configurations on how you can fit this to your network to meet your requirements and the structure of your network in your Active Directory. You'll be able to watch how the script runs, and at the end we'll be able to set it up in Task Scheduler to make sure that we can have this running and keeping track of our accounts. So without further ado, let's get into it. My environment I have here is a server 2019. I've ran this script on server 2019, server 2022. I don't see why it wouldn't work on a server 2016 as well, but 2012 and back, I do not believe it'll work. But 2016 and newer, you should be good to go. A couple of other things I wanted to highlight before we begin is that you'd always want to run this script on your primary domain controller. In the past, I have seen issues with Active Directory if that wasn't the case, but I've put mitigations for any issues inside of the script. But just as a general rule of thumb, running this on your primary domain controller, you'll see no issues. Another thing is that you want to keep the script away from standard users or any users you don't want modifying it. Once we put it in Task Scheduler, it's just going to run weekly. Any modifications to the script will run with admin privileges, so just try to keep it away from anyone you don't want to modify it. And these scripts I will be showing you needs the Active Directory PowerShell module installed on them. How to install that is in my actual implementation guide. Um, so feel free to reference this anytime you need. It's got what I'm talking about right now and more, goes more into depth, and will just be a great tool to keep around the script in case new people come in and they want to learn about it, or you need to debug something in the future. This is always a great tool to have. Before I actually get into the configurations, I'm going to clear up our working area here so I can better explain and show you what exactly is going on when we run a couple of these scripts. So let's get into our config manager. When you first run this script, it'll create a configurations directory right here in the current working directory, and this will store our configs in a CSV file format. Make sure that if you ever move any of these scripts, that the configurations move with it. It must stay in the current working directory of any of these scripts. Every time these scripts run, they'll try to reach out to the configurations, and if it can't find it, you might have some issues. So anytime these move the configurations with them. And so without further ado, let's get into the general configurations. I'll go through these one by one for y'all and explain them. First, you have your output save path. This will be the path that the main script will save its outputs to. So I'll put it in our working directory here. And inside this directory I set, the script will automatically create folders based on the month it runs. So example, today it's January. You'll see a January 2026 folder. Next month will be a February 2026 folder, and it'll sort the output in that kind of manner. And actually it'll give us error right here because that output folder doesn't exist, but when the main script runs, it'll actually create this for us. So we'll just say yes, we'll keep this value. Disabled OU path, this is the distinguished name of your disabled user's OU. If you do not have a disabled user's OU in your network, it's okay to keep this blank. It'll disable all the features that require it. And so basically what I'm setting here is, okay, when users are disabled, where are we going to send them? So this will actually search Active Directory here, so DIS for disabled, and it's actually able to pull up our disabled users OU here. And so we'll select that, and we'll say yes. The rest of these I'll keep default, but I will explain them to y'all. So debug mode is a very important feature for the script. When it is enabled, no modifications to any users will take place. No modifications to the network will take place. It basically runs in a test mode, so you can make sure your configurations are set how you want them to be set before actually wanting to disable users. And you can see here that there's actually a debug mode overwrite variable inside of the script. By default, this will be on to make sure even if you change this, that debug mode will be on. So it's kind of like a fail-safe. You have to go inside the script itself and disable this in order to actually run it with debug mode off. And I'll show you that later on. Right now, we will just keep it enabled. So below debug mode, we have our inactivity parameters. This is what defines a user as inactive, and I'll go through these one by one for y'all. First is our days since inactive. This is your standard. If a user hasn't logged in X amount of days, they will be deemed inactive and will be treated as such. Here we have 60 days, so if a user hasn't logged in for 60 days, they will be deemed inactive. Next is our days since created. If a user was created but has never logged in, they'll have 5 days in this instance to log in before they're also deemed inactive. And then days since enabled, if a user was re-enabled recently and they haven't logged in since they've been enabled, they will also be deemed inactive and handled accordingly. That explains a couple of our configurations we have here. The next configurations is what I would call my matching configurations. This is done in functions 2 and 3 here. Modify users noted inactive or modify users to disable. And here I'll show you what my Active Directory looks like and how I'm going to want to set this up. So I have all of my users under people here. This includes our admins. This is our disabled users OU, our domain users or our standard users. And of course we have service accounts as well. And so in my environment, I'm going to want to keep service accounts and admins from never being disabled. But our domain users and even our DTA agent we have in here, we're going to have them automatically disabled whenever they reach the inactivity parameters. One thing to keep in mind is that you're going to want to make sure that both of these functions will encompass every single user, every single enabled user you have on your network. Otherwise, you'll see accounts that are unmatched and the script doesn't know what to do with them. So they're not going to do anything, but it'll let you know, hey, we got some users that might not be where they're supposed to be, or maybe you missed an OU or missed a group. And so handle that accordingly. So let's go in and see how we can note accounts as inactive. So you'll be greeted here and we'll actually use the groups or OUs to note an account as inactive. So like I said, we'll use our admins. We'll use our admins OU. We'll say local admin. We'll also add our service accounts. So I actually just type people here to kind of show you how this works. So now it's found everything that includes the word people. And so all of our OUs under people, and you can select the number you wish to choose, and that would be service accounts on 2. And we'll note them as a service account. This string here basically is a definition of their role. This is what it'll look like in the output. So for instance, actually let me remove account. So whatever you put here will replace its underlined value. In this case, it's going to be the same. But in the output summary, you'll see X account is inactive. So local admin account is inactive, the service account is inactive, and so on. So we'll put that to our configuration. And say we had that domain admin in our admins OU, say we want them to be noted separately. And we just kind of want to clarify that this is a domain admin rather than a local admin. We can also add a group so that user is under our domain admins group here. And we'll say domain admin for this guy. We can save our configuration. And one thing that is also important is the priority of this list. The script will go from top to bottom and see, hey, is this user in the admins OU? If so, we'll just move on to the next person. This guy's just going to be a local admin. This is important because, so for say your service accounts, they're in admin groups, they're in auditor groups. You want to make sure that you change the priority to make sure our service accounts is noted first. So now they're not going to be misclassified as an admin or whatever other groups they might be a part of. Same for our domain admins here. where they're also in that admin's OU. So the script will basically ignore that. It won't recognize the domain admin because they're already recognized as a local admin first. If we move this above admins, we'll recognize that domain admin first, then the rest of the admins that are in that OU will be a local admin. So it's not going to cause any issues per se. It's just going to be some maybe miscommunication on what kind of account is what. You're not going to have any accidental disabling of accounts. So this should be good. We have our notifications set up how we want. Next, we're going to have to specify which users to disable. So I mentioned that we're going to add our domain users OU. Domain users, and this I'll just note as my standard user. And we're also going to want to add our DTAs. So they are in a DTA group. Add that as our DTAs. And like how we did last time, we're going to want to put those DTAs on top just to make sure they're not just categorized with our standard user. And we should be good to go now. We edited the general configuration saying, hey, where are we going to save this file? What are our parameters that define users inactive? We also said, hey, these accounts are only going to be noted as inactive, and these accounts are going to be disabled. And we made sure that all the users that will be enabled are going to be caught by this script, by our configurations we set. So we should be good to go now and actually run the main script here. So here we go. See that we have no issues going on. We found 5 inactive users. Actually created our output directory as we expected, and also our 2026 folder. So let's check it out. So of course we'll start with a warning saying, hey, debug mode is enabled. Rest assured, we found a user inactive here, but it was not disabled because debug mode is on. Okay. You have a couple of users down here that are recently enabled. These users I have either created or enabled recently just for this demonstration. So they're going to be shown there. And we have our Nessus account here that's not been logged in before, or at least in a while. It has been logged in before. And so you can see if a user has never been logged in before, it's actually their created date it'll use as defining if this user is inactive or not. So, okay, looks pretty nice. Let's try to change some of the configurations. See if we can catch some more of those users. Let's change day since created to 0. Also, day since enabled to 0. So now, the user's ever been created but never logged in before, there's no grace periods anymore, really. If they've been created, if they've been re-enabled, they'll be disabled again immediately if the script runs. No grace period. So let's run it again. Not that one. See what was going on. Now we found 7 users inactive. New file here. Okay. So now we actually found a user that was unmatched. This user is in the disabled users OU. And that's one thing that happens when you set the disabled users OU in the general configurations. It'll actually query it and see, hey, are there any enabled users in this OU? If so, we're going to alert the admins or ISOs, whoever looks at this file. We'll put that in the report. And so, yeah, looks like we are all good to try to run it with debug mode off. And so, of course, like I mentioned before, we actually have to go inside of the script here. We have this debug mode overwrite variable. We're going to have to set this to false in order for the configurations we set inside of the config manager to actually apply. Otherwise, you can disable it in the config manager. If this is true, debug mode will always be on. If this is false, it'll go based off what the config manager says. So now let's go back to the config manager and actually disable that. So we're going to turn debug mode off, say yes, double confirm, we'll save that. There we go, now it's totally disabled. And before I actually run it here, I want to show you how to put it in the task scheduler. So let's create new task. Let's call it DIA for disable inactive accounts. You're going to want to run the script with a service account. If it's like a random like admin or something, if they get disabled, this will stop running. So you're going to need a service account with administrator privileges in order to run the script. We're going to run it whether user is logged in or not. Run with the highest privileges. We're going to set this for 2019. Set it for whatever you have. I guess preferably not 2012 or back. Trigger. Basically, when do we want it to run? Let's say we want to run it every Sunday at 9 a.m. There we go. This should be good to go. Actions. This was where people might get tripped up. This is how you're going to want to set it. We're going to actually just put PowerShell.exe in this box. And we're going to add some arguments. First, we want execution policy bypass. This ensures any policies that might prohibit us from executing this file are bypassed, and we're able to just run it. And we're actually going to specify the file here. I would always put it in double quotes just in case your path has spaces. This makes sure that it'll work fine. And ours is in the C scripts DIA, then DisableInactiveAccounts.ps1. Okay. So this is what it should look like here. The rest of these, you can edit these if you want, not necessary. So we're just gonna say okay here. And we're gonna put the password for whatever account we chosen. And here we go, we got our test set up, ready to go. Before I actually run it though, I wanted to show you that when you have debug mode completely off, you have a 15-second warning here to actually Control C and stop it from actually running before you don't want it to run, right? So make sure that we want it to run when it wants to run. And actually created an empty file here. Since it didn't run, it's just an empty file. So I'm just going to delete this to make sure we are all good to go. So I'm going to run this now. We're going to have to wait that 15 seconds. But when that 15 seconds is over, I'll come back and show y'all what it looks like. So our 0 kilobytes just turned into 3. So it looks like everything ran. Let's check it out. We don't have that warning anymore saying debug mode was on. And we actually have users that say they were disabled here. We have our DTA account, our standard user accounts, of course our domain active and service domain admin service account. These guys are not going to be disabled. They're never going to be disabled. We specified that in our configs. Only the people we set. We have our unmatched accounts still here. They're not going to be disabled automatically. They're just going to be noted, hey, what is going on here? And one final thing I'd like to mention is this replication status. This is the mitigation I put in place for those Active Directory issues I was seeing before. Running this on your primary domain controller should not have an issue, but this being successful means that we have successfully pushed our changes across the domain, whether that be to other backup Active Directory servers or even the workstations that are going to pull this data. We are good to go on that standpoint. And before I let you go, I'll show you my Active Directory to see exactly what happened. Let's refresh that, and oh, all our standard users are gone. They've been disabled. Refresh this one again, and here you go. We have all of our accounts have been disabled. You can even see we'll have a date that they're automatically disabled. So yeah, here's it in action. I hope you enjoyed. I hope that you can find the script useful. Any bugs you notice, any feedback you'd like to give, any new ideas for a completely different script, I'm here for it. My email is on my GitHub. Please reach out if you ever would like to. But yeah, without further ado, I guess that's it.